In my life, I've been in the middle a lot. When Fashion Queens got canceled, I was squarely in the middle. Y'all know from 40 to 45, I was absolutely broke. So I already knew that I was going to be able to make a way out of no way. So here's the thing. I'm in a perpetual state of being in the middle all the time. And I got to be honest, I didn't think I would still be in the middle, but here I am. But I also realized that the middle is why I'm able to be so strong, why I'm able to be so relatable, why so many people connect with me, because I have been in those same lulls in my career and in my life, trying to figure it out. So I'm here to illuminate the middle. I'm here to make sure that I'm talking to people that are experts, that are notables, that are willing to share their journey with us while they're still on the journey. That's what I want the show to be. I want it to be a time capsule for my guests so they can say, wow, look at how far I've come. Because every single person that I'm going to have on this show is a winner. Every single person that I'm going to have on this show is innovative. Every single person that I have on this show, I believe, will get to their Z. But right now, they're in the middle. And so am I. So cuddle up. Think of me as your bestie, your trusted lover, that mother, that auntie that you always wanted to cuddle up with because she's going to tell you the truth. This is In Bed with Bevy. Hello, lovers, and welcome to In Bed with Bevy. Y'all, I actually did it. I said it on the Tamron Hall show in January, and it's now February, and you're getting your first episode of In Bed with Bevy. Now, let me break it down to you. You know I've been trying to do this show for over 20 years, right? I had this idea when I still had a good old corporate job back in the day, and I just didn't know how I was going to get it done. Initially, though, it was a very different show. I thought I wanted to interview celebrities laid up in bed with them. My test show was going to be Pamela Anderson of Baywatch Beauty fame, the Snoop Dogg of Long Beach, and Colin Powell of the Bronx, General Colin Powell, former Secretary of State Colin Powell. Now, what had happened was, unfortunately, Colin Powell died. But actually, before he even passed away, the idea for In Bed with Bevy had shifted. I have gone on an amazing journey in my careers, with a plural S there. So when I first quit my job at Rolling Stone as a fabulous fashionista, advertising executress, it was with this idea of doing so many things in entertainment. To become a writer, a producer, a director, an actor, an acrobat, a juggler, all kinds of things, child. So it took me a little while to get to this point where I actually am talking to you like this, candidly and like raw and in a silk robe. So when I thought about the Colin Powell, Pamela Anderson, Snoop Dogg kind of triple threat, it was with the idea that I wanted to talk to celebrities that folks knew and loved, but did not know everything about them. Like the fact that Pamela Anderson was not just a Baywatch beauty, she was actually a really intelligent woman who had to dumb down herself so that she could make it in Hollywood. Or someone like Snoop, who we knew as gin and juice, smoking a fat J, you know, being from Long Beach, crip walking, but he actually had crossover appeal, as you see now from him being with the fabulous Martha Stewart. And then Colin Powell. How does someone who grew up in the Bronx become a five-star general, a Secretary of State, and a Republican at that? So I wanted this all to just be in bed and unearthing new things about each other. And then what had happened was I became Bevy Smith of Bevelations, my radio show, where for 10 years I've been interviewing celebrities like Sam Jackson and Kate Hudson and Christine Baranski and Mary J. Blige, and like the list goes on and on and on. So once I started really interviewing celebrities, I realized that this is nice, but you kind of get the same story over and over again. Even when you get a breakthrough, there's something a little removed about celebrities because they're celebrities, right? So we think of them as rich and famous. And so no matter how down to earth they are, we never really feel like we can really connect. But what about if I interviewed notables? What if I interviewed people who had really compelling stories, who had written books, who were experts in their field? I thought that could be really something interesting. And I thought that we could really dig deep. And I thought that we could get to the middle of things, which brings me to this version of In Bed With Bevy, because I believe that the meat is in the middle. We have been taught that the story goes from A to Z. But for me, I find that the middle is what's really important. The meat is in the middle. I want to know what your life has been like on this journey. I want to know you while you're on the journey. I want us to unearth all these epiphanies that later on you're going to be like, yes, I'm a big star and this is what had happened was. But what about us knowing what's happening right now while you're still moving towards the summit, while you're still rolling that boulder up the hill? That's what's interesting to me, because I'm actually in that space right now. When I look back on the 21 years, child, it's been 21 years since I had a corporate job. 21 years of being on my own in these streets, in these entrepreneurial streets. It's been really amazing, but I'd be lying if I said it hasn't been arduous at times. It hasn't been defeating. I've had to have a lot of faith. I've had to have a lot of friends. So Bevelations came about because my friend Andrew Cohen, you probably know him as Andy Cohen of Bravo fame. Well, I once had a show on Bravo called Fashion Queens with Little Derek J and Miss Lawrence. And that show was revolutionary. To this day, I really feel like it was the best thing I've ever done on TV thus far. And folks still to this day come up to me and ask me about Fashion Queens and when is it coming back. It got canceled in 2015. I don't think it's coming back. Anyway, I digress. So it got canceled. And so, you know, of course, I had just come back from a vacation, because when the season ends, you're like, yay, I did my good work, now I can go on vacation. And I remember I took a huge vacation. It was the first big vacation I had taken since I turned 45 years old. And I guess I was like 49 when I took this vacation. And I went to Bali. Now, you guys probably think that Bali is cheap, right? It ain't if you do it well. First of all, I had to fly real good first class. So that was extraordinarily expensive. And then I moved around Bali. But that's for my travel show. I'll tell y'all more about that during the travel show. So I was just traveling and everything, and I was buying whatever I wanted, art, jewelry, all the things. So when I come back from my travels and I get a phone call saying, you know, I've got bad news. Fashion Queens has been canceled. Hashtag I gagged. And I was like, okay, what's next? And I was like, a little despondent, but I also understood that everything is as it should be. That is my mantra. That has been my mantra since I became an entrepreneur. Everything is as it should be. So I try not to worry, because worry give you wrinkles and, you know, the doll's skin, okay? When Fashion Queens got canceled, I was squarely in the middle. Like, I had some success doing TV, something I had always dreamed of. I had this TV show on one of the hottest cable networks. I was working with people that I absolutely loved. And guess what? I was getting a little taste of fame, okay? So when the show gets canceled, I'm like, what am I going to do now? And I really didn't know. But I have to be honest, I wasn't overly concerned because I had already weathered quite the storm. Y'all know from 40 to 45, I was absolutely broke. Like, salmon croquettes in a can broke. Like, housing court broke. So I already knew that I was going to be able to make a way out of no way. So being canceled, while it was disheartening, I knew that I would survive and thrive. So I was not expecting a phone call from Andy Cohen because, you know, the show was over. And although he loves me, okay, girl, move along. That's what I thought. So when I got a call from Andy Cohen asking me if I ever wanted to do a radio show and telling me that he now had a deal with SiriusXM to launch his own radio network, and would I like a show, I was like, well, yeah. But here's the thing, Andy. I am not interested in talking about fashion. And then Andrew Cohen said, well, you don't have to talk about fashion. You can talk about whatever you want. As a matter of fact, you could just make it like a Twitter feed. At the time, Twitter was real big. That's before the X fiasco. And I used to like do all kinds of things on Twitter, including live tweet The View, but you'll hear more about that a little later. So when I got that gig, I was really excited, and I'll never forget, my first guest was Pharrell, because I always believe how you start is how you finish. So I wanted to come out the gate swinging. And it was quite the transition to go from TV to radio, because as you know, most people go from radio to television. And I did the reverse. And I have to say, I was not ready for the bare bones lifestyle of radio, honey. I was like, well, where's the green room? And where's the hair and makeup? I literally had no idea. And I thought that my producer would be bringing me refreshments and stuff, making sure I had the coffees and the teas and the waters and everything. And yeah, that's not what a radio producer does at all. So I had to learn the hard way. I had to make a huge adjustment, and it wasn't always that comfortable for me, but I made it through. And then I got the phone call to audition for Page 6 TV, a nationally syndicated television show. Now, in case you guys don't understand, doing national syndicated TV is like the Holy Grail. People want that kind of gig. That's when you're on almost 98% of the country sees you on television, and they don't need cable, they don't need anything. They need bunny ears in order to see you. So it's actually the biggest reach of television, far bigger than cable. So it was an upgrade as far as the amount of people that could see me on Page 6 TV versus on Bravo. But for what it is that I want to be doing in life, it wasn't so much of an upgrade. So I get Page 6 TV. I'm working with some really great people, including my co-hosts, Elizabeth Wagmeister and Carlos Greer, and it's amazing, and I love them so much. I do not love the gig. And the reason why I don't love the gig is because Page 6 is a gossip column in the New York Post. And although the show wasn't as hardcore gossip, I still prefer to talk to celebrities than to talk about them. So it was tough for me. Also, we had to talk about all kinds of pop culture topics that I wasn't necessarily interested in. Like, I don't really care about who's sleeping with who and who's what the latest Kardashian nail polish is. I don't really care about that kind of stuff. But that was what was required of Page 6 TV. So, of course, I'm a girl from Harlem. So when I'm tasked with a job and when I sign on for something, I'm going to see it through. And that's exactly what I did with Page 6 TV. But I would be lying if I said that when it got canceled, I was sad. I was not. I was sad for the people who had gotten laid off, obviously, the crew and the other cast members. But for me, I was like, okay, this is liberation for me. I get to do something new now. I get to try my hand at something that I've always wanted to do. Something that I actually set out to quit my job to do. And that is act. I told my agents at the time, I don't want to go on any more pop culture TV auditions. I want to actually go out for acting auditions. This is in September of 2019. So they're taking it in. They're like, okay, but I don't think they really are taking me seriously. That's the thing about agents, If you're making money for them doing one thing, they don't necessarily like you to deviate from the formula, right? So the agents, namaste, but I'm not going to stay. I ended up leaving that agency because I didn't feel like they really supported me. And then I signed with another one, but that's a whole other story. And maybe we'll get into that in later episodes of In Bed With Bevy. But I did get an opportunity in March of 2020, March 12th, March 11th or 12th, I went on an audition for an unnamed TV show that was going to be about Harlem, where I'm from, the hamlet of Harlem. And it was about 4 young women in their 30s navigating life in Harlem. So think of very fabulous sepia-toned Sex in the City. So I went in to audition as a mom. And it literally, in case you haven't put the dots together, March 11th, 2020, the country closes down March 13th, 2020, due to a little thing called COVID. Y'all remember that? It was a whole global pandemic. It killed a lot of people, and it was a really bad and scary time. Well, I go for this audition literally 2 days before the country closes down. I remember thinking when I got the opportunity to do the audition, I was afraid to do it. And I thought to myself, I don't really want to go and do this audition. My dad is in a rehab facility because he fell and hurt his neck. So he's like, every day I'm going there and I'm reading the news to him. So I'm really aware of what's going on globally with the pandemic. So I'm talking to him and I'm like, Dad, this is crazy. This is like awful. This is pandemic and it's all over the world and all the things. So I'm a little hesitant to go on this audition. And I don't know whether or not I'm hesitant to go because I'm afraid of being out in public around a lot of people because of the pandemic. Or am I afraid to face my fears and actually go and audition as an actor? I still don't know which one it was. But what I will tell you is I went and did the audition anyway. And I'm in the room, and I do my lines, and I don't know if I stunk up the joint because literally 2 days later, the world closed down, so I didn't hear anything back until like the following spring. And then I get a call from the casting agent and saying that they want me to come in for a role. I didn't have to read for it. They send me over the sides. I'm calling it sides, but it was literally 3 lines. And I took 3 lines and turned it into 3 seasons of being on Amazon Prime's Harlem. How you like them apples? Because I've been on these streets, these entrepreneurial streets for 21 years, and because I don't just do one thing, I've always had ample and multiple revenue streams. A lot of people will say, oh, Bevy, you're such a hustler. And I chafe at that. I am not a hustler. I'm a strategist. And a lot of people don't understand that. And I'll tell you what I believe is the difference between a hustler and a strategist. A hustler is someone who's going to go and get the money no matter what, at any cost. And they don't really care how they make money, as long as it's legal. And even then, that's sometimes a gray area. But a hustler will sell you real estate, skinny tea, a timeshare, and do your hair. That's a hustler. I'm not that. I'm a strategist. So every single way that I make money, it all connects and is tied together. I have a business called Dinner with Bevy, where I host dinner parties for blue chip brands and celebrities. So that ties directly into my life as Bevy Smith, TV host and radio host. I get to interview celebrities in those spaces, and then they turn around and attend a dinner with Bevy, or sometimes are the guest of honor. So the ways that I make money are all interconnected, and that is all by design. And that is why I'm a strategist and not nobody's damn hustler. So here's the thing. I'm in a perpetual state of being in the middle all the time, y'all, and it's exhausting. The dog be tired. Sometimes the dog just be like, can I just like get there? Can I just get to the summit where I can just coast? But that is not my lot just yet. I'm 55, aka 59, and I gotta be honest, I didn't think I would still be in the middle, but here I am. I think that also social media feeds so much into this idea that our entire lives should be a highlights reel. We only see the wins. We only see people being fabulous and flawless and doing all the things that they've ever wanted to do. Meanwhile, how they get there? We never want to look at the journey because most times people ain't about to show us the journey. No one wants to be that vulnerable. People talk about authenticity, but the same way I just sat here and told you guys that I have to go to housing court and eat some salmon croquettes from 40 to 45, most folks ain't fitting to do that. And I realize that. But I also realize that the middle is why I'm able to be so strong, why I'm able to be so relatable, why so many people connect with me. Because I have been in those same lulls in my career and in my life, trying to figure it out. And honestly, no one has it all figured out ever. I mean, I've talked to people that are 80, 90 years old, and they're like, yeah, no, the older you get, the more you know how much you don't know. So I'm here to illuminate the middle. I'm here to let folks know that it doesn't have to be scary. I'm here to make sure that I'm talking to people that are experts, that are notables, that are willing to share their journey with us while they're still on the journey. So that we can look back and be like, child, remember when X, Y, and Z was on In Bed With Bevy and telling us that they were trying to do that, and now look at them, an Oscar winner. That's what I want the show to be. I want it to be a time capsule for my guests so they can say, wow, look at how far I've come. Because every single person that I'm going to have on this show is a winner. Every single person that I'm going to have on this show is innovative. Every single person that I have on this show, I believe, will get to their Z. But right now, they're in the middle. And so am I. I'm your bestie. I'm your trusted lover. I'm your mother auntie type that you can climb in the bed with and tell her all your secrets. And I want us to be in the middle together. This is In Bed with Bevy. Thank you for watching. Please like, follow, and subscribe to The Bevy Smith on YouTube.